The bridge of the Relentless hummed with quiet activity as Captain Marcus Volkov reviewed patrol reports. His fleet had been stationed at the outer rim for 3 months now, monitoring the edge of human territory. It was boring work, but someone had to do it. The stars beyond the view screen looked peaceful, almost inviting. That peace was about to shatter. A sharp beep cut through the silence. Lieutenant Torres at the communications station straightened suddenly. Her fingers flew across her console and her face went pale. "Captain, we're receiving a distress signal. It's coming from Sector 7903. The signal is weak but continuous." Volkov rose from his chair and moved to stand behind Torres. "Origin?" "Unknown, sir. The encryption is alien. Not from any species we've encountered before." Torres adjusted her headset and frowned. "Wait, I'm getting something. The computer is translating now." The bridge speakers crackled to life. A voice came through, weak and broken. It spoke in halting English, clearly learned from human broadcasts. "Please, anyone, we are dying. They are killing us. Billions dead. Please help. We know you are new to the stars. We know you may not care. But please, we have children too." The bridge went silent. Every crew member had stopped what they were doing. The desperation in that voice cut deeper than any weapon. Volkov's jaw tightened. "Torres, can you get a visual?" "Trying now, sir." "The signal is degrading fast." The main view screen flickered and resolved into a grainy image. A creature appeared unlike anything they had seen before. It had 4 arms, smooth gray skin, and large eyes that reflected deep intelligence and deeper pain. Behind it, smoke and flames filled what looked like a ship's interior. "I am Treasurer Ilan of the Velen Republic," the creature said. Blood leaked from a wound on its shoulder. "We sent our fastest ship to reach anyone who might listen. The Galactic Council has refused to help us. They say interference would violate their protocols. They say the strong have always dominated the weak. This is how the galaxy works, they told us." Ilan coughed, and more blood appeared on its uniform. "The Krynoth Dominion came 6 months ago. They did not negotiate. They did not offer terms. They simply began destroying our worlds. We tried to fight. Our military was crushed in days. They are superior in every way. They have better weapons, better shields, better ships. We stood no chance." The image shook as the ship Ilan was on took damage. Alarms blared in the background. "We have lost 47 worlds. Billions dead. Billions more in chains, taken as slaves. Our homeworld will fall within weeks. I know humanity is new to galactic civilization. I know we have nothing to offer you. But I beg you, please help us, please." The view screen went dark. Torres looked up with tears in her eyes. "Sir, the ship just exploded. Sensors showed debris expanding from the coordinates. There are no life signs." Volkov stood perfectly still for a long moment. His crew watched him, waiting. Finally he spoke, his voice cold as deep space. "Get me Admiral Kane, Priority Alpha Channel. Tell her we have a situation." Within 10 minutes, Admiral Rebecca Kane's face appeared on the view screen. She was in her office on Mars Station, surrounded by star maps and tactical displays. Her gray hair was pulled back tight, and her eyes held the hardness of someone who had fought in the border wars. "This better be important, Marcus. I was about to sit down to my first hot meal in 2 days. Admiral, we just received a distress call from an unknown alien species. They're being wiped out by something called the Krynoth Dominion." Volkov sent her the recording. Kane watched in silence. When it ended, she leaned back in her chair. "The Galactic Council refused to help them?" "Yes, ma'am. According to the alien, they cited non-interference protocols." Kane's expression turned to stone. "How convenient. Send me everything you have. I'm convening an emergency session of the Defense Committee." "Stand by for orders." The connection ended. Volkov turned to his crew. "All hands battle stations. I want every ship in our patrol group ready to jump on my command. This isn't a drill." 2 hours later, something appeared on the edge of the system. A ship barely holding together limped through the jump point. It was small, elegant in design despite the terrible damage it had taken. Scorch marks covered its hull and atmosphere vented from a dozen breaches. "Captain, that ship is hailing us," Torres said. "They're requesting emergency docking permission." "Granted." "Medical teams to docking bay 3. Tell them to prepare for alien physiology." Volkov headed for the hangar deck himself. When the alien ship's hatch opened, 4 Velens stumbled out. They wore what looked like diplomatic robes, now torn and burned. The leader, an elderly Velen with deep purple markings on its face, approached Volkov. It moved with dignity despite obvious pain. "I am Ambassador Ilan. My cousin who sent the message did not survive. I apologize for intruding on your territory. We will leave as soon as our ship is repaired. We assumed, like the Council, that you would not wish to involve yourselves in our extinction. Volkov studied the alien. He saw exhaustion, grief, and the acceptance of death. This being had already given up hope. Ambassador, I need to understand something. This Krynith Dominion, what do they want?
Slaves, resources, territory. They are an empire built on conquest.
The weak exist only to serve the strong. This is their belief. Ilan's voice carried centuries of sadness. Every few decades, they choose a new target. This time it was us. Next time, it will be someone else. The galaxy accepts this as normal. The strong survive. The weak perish. This is the way things are. And what about your children? Your families? Ilan's large eyes filled with moisture. Taken. Scattered across Krynoth slave worlds. My own daughter is somewhere in their empire. I will never see her again. This is the price of being weak in a galaxy of predators. Volkov felt something cold settle in his chest. He had felt it before, during the border wars when pirates had raided Earth colonies. It was a dangerous feeling, one that made men do terrible things. But sometimes terrible things needed doing. Ambassador, you've made a mistake in your assumptions about humanity. Ilan bowed its head. I understand. We will leave. Thank you for your kindness in hearing us. It is more than the Council provided. At least we can say someone listened before the end. No, you misunderstand. Volkov's voice dropped to something harsh and cold. You assumed we wouldn't help because we're new to the galaxy, because we don't know the rules, because we're not strong enough. But you don't understand what you've just done. You asked a Deathworlder for help. You asked the species from Earth where everything wants to kill you, where survival means fighting every single day. We don't negotiate with slavers, Ambassador. We don't accept that might makes right. We end them. Ilan stared at him. But you cannot win. The Krynith have thousands of ships. Their warriors are bred for combat. Their weapons are beyond anything you possess. You would be destroyed. A grim smile crossed Volkov's face. Maybe. But they're about to learn something about humans. We're really, really bad at accepting things we don't like. And we're even worse at backing down from bullies. His communicator chimed. Admiral Kane's face appeared. Marcus, the Defense Committee has voted. Unanimous decision. We're mobilizing the fleet, all of it. 200 ships will be jumping to Velen space within 6 hours. The Krynoth wanted a fight. They're about to get one. Ilan collapsed to its knees. But why? We have nothing to offer you. We cannot repay this debt. Why would you risk your entire civilization for strangers? Volkov helped the ambassador to its feet. Because someone has to. Because we've been where you are. Because we know what it's like when no one comes to help. And because the Krynoth made one critical mistake. What mistake? Our intelligence just intercepted their communications. They've already marked our colony worlds as their next targets. They called humans a primitive species ripe for harvesting. They threatened our children, Ambassador. They threatened Earth. Volkov's eyes turned hard as diamonds. This isn't a rescue mission anymore. This is total war, and the Krynoth are about to learn what happens when you threaten a Deathworld species. They're about to learn what humanity does to monsters. We become bigger monsters. The relentless engines fired up, preparing for the jump. Across human space, 200 warships did the same. Humanity was going to war, and the galaxy would never be the same. The human fleet emerged from the jump point like vengeful ghosts. 200 warships, their weapons already hot, their shields at maximum. Captain Volkov stood on the bridge of the Relentless and stared at the horror before him. The Velen home system was a graveyard. Thousands of destroyed ships floated in the void, their crews long dead. Orbital stations burned, spilling atmosphere and bodies into space, and surrounding it all, the Krynoth blockade fleet sat like fat predators over a kill. Sir, we're being hailed, Torres said. The Krynoth are demanding our identification. Put them through. The view screen lit up with the image of a massive creature. The Krynoth war commander stood over 3 meters tall, covered in thick armored plates that looked like natural bone. 4 arms, each tipped with claws, gestured as it spoke. Its face was a nightmare of fangs and cold, calculating eyes. This was War Commander Thulgrim, leader of the Krynoth 7th Fleet. Unknown vessels, you have entered a restricted combat zone. Identify yourselves immediately or be destroyed. The Velen species is property of the Krynoth Dominion. Interference will not be tolerated. Volkov studied the creature. He had seen monsters before. Earth had plenty. But this thing wore its cruelty like a badge of honor. This is Captain Marcus Volkov of the Terran Defense Fleet. We're here to discuss your immediate withdrawal from this system. Thulgrim laughed, a sound like grinding metal. Terran? The primitive species from that backwater death world? We have analyzed your vessels. Your technology is inferior. Your numbers are insufficient. You will surrender immediately, or we will add your species to our collection. Your worlds will make fine additions to the Dominion. I see. Before we discuss surrender, I'd like to show you something. Volkov nodded to Torres, who began broadcasting a data package. That's Earth, our homeworld. Take a good look. The transmission showed Earth in all its terrifying glory. Category 5 hurricanes that could flatten cities, volcanoes that could alter global climates, earthquakes that could sink continents, animals that could kill with venom, claws, fangs, or sheer size. And through it all, humans thriving, adapting, conquering their own world through pure stubborn determination. That's where we come from, War Commander. Everything on that planet tried to kill us for millions of years. We survived. We thrived. We became the apex predator of a world that specializes in apex predators. So here's our counteroffer. Leave now. Leave this system, leave these people alone, and we might let you live. Or stay and learn exactly why we're called Deathworlders. Thulgrim's expression twisted into something between amusement and rage. You dare threaten the Dominion? You are 200 ships. We are 500. Your threats are empty. You will submit or you will die. Volkov's smile was cold and sharp. Wrong answer. All ships weapons free. Show them what Earth sends to bullies. The human fleet exploded into action, but not in the way the Krynoth expected. Civilized species fought in formations with careful tactics and measured responses. They valued their ships and crews. They retreated when outmatched. Humans did none of these things. The first wave of human attack craft screamed toward the Krynoth lines at speeds that should have torn them apart. They didn't fire long-range weapons. They closed to point-blank range and unleashed everything. Missiles, railguns, lasers, and kinetic weapons designed to punch through armor. When their weapons ran dry, they rammed. Thulgrim watched in disbelief as a human fighter craft, engines trailing fire, slammed into the bridge of a Krynoth destroyer. The impact killed the fighter pilot instantly. It also killed everyone on the destroyer's bridge. The ship tumbled out of formation, vulnerable. 3 more human ships pounced on it like wolves on wounded prey. What are they doing? Thulgrim roared. They're sacrificing their own vessels. This is insane. His second-in-command, a scarred veteran named Vakran, studied the tactical display with growing unease. War Commander, they're not following any known combat doctrine. They're using ramming tactics. They're ignoring their own casualties. They're fighting like cornered animals. Then we'll put them down like animals. All ships advance. Crush them. But the human fleet wasn't breaking. For every ship they lost, they took 2 Krynoth vessels with them. Human boarding pods launched. Magnetic clamps pulling them toward Krynoth hulls. The pods latched on and burned through armor with plasma cutters. What came next was worse. Lieutenant Jackson Cross led the first boarding team onto a Krynoth carrier. His Marines wore heavy armor and carried weapons that looked primitive compared to Krynoth technology. But what they lacked in sophistication, they made up for in brutality. They fought in ways no civilized species would consider. The Krynoth warriors stood over 2 meters tall and had natural weapons built into their bodies. They were bred for combat, trained from birth to kill. They outnumbered the human boarding team 3-1. It didn't matter. Jackson's team moved through the Krynoth ship like a storm of violence. They used explosives to breach bulkheads. They fought in zero gravity as easily as on solid ground. When ammunition ran low, they used knives. When knives broke, they used their hands. The Krynoth had never faced an enemy that refused to die when it should. One Krynoth warrior managed to tear Jackson's helmet off. The human should have died in the vacuum. Instead, Jackson held his breath, crushed the warrior's throat with his bare hands, and took its breathing apparatus. He kept fighting for another 2 minutes before his team could get him to safety. They're insane, Vakran whispered as he watched footage from the carrier. They don't fear death. They welcome it. Thulgrim's confidence was cracking. All ships concentrate fire on their command vessel. Kill their leader and they'll break. The Krynoth fleet focused everything on the Relentless. Hundreds of weapons carved through space. The human dreadnought's shields flared and failed. Armor boiled away under the onslaught. The ship was dying. Captain shields are down. Hull breaches on decks 4-9. We're venting atmosphere. Engines are critical. Torres reported the damage with remarkable calm. Volkov watched his ship die around him. All hands, this is the captain. We've taken critical damage. I'm not ordering anyone to stay. Anyone who wants to evacuate, the shuttles are ready. I won't think less of you. Not a single person moved from their station. Torres looked at him with fierce determination. Sir, with respect, we're not going anywhere. If this ship is dying, we're taking as many of those bastards with us as we can. The crew's loyalty hit Volkov harder than any weapon. He nodded, unable to speak for a moment. Then he turned to his weapons officer. Target their flagship. All remaining missiles. Everything we have left. Sir, at this range we'll catch ourselves in the blast. I know, fire. The Relentless unleashed its final barrage. Missiles streaked toward the Krynoth flagship, and this time, there was nowhere for it to hide. The warheads detonated against the flagship's hull, and secondary explosions rippled through its structure. The massive vessel broke apart, pieces spinning into the void. War Commander Thulgrim died without ever understanding what had killed him. The explosion caught the Relentless as well. The blast wave hammered the crippled dreadnought, but somehow it held together. Volkov pulled himself up from where the impact had thrown him. Status. We're alive, sir, barely. Life support is on emergency power. But sensors show the Krynoth fleet is breaking off. They're retreating. Ambassador Ilan appeared on the communications channel from one of the human escort ships. The Velen's face showed a mixture of awe and horror. Captain Volkov, we're detecting Krynoth survivors floating in space. What are your orders? Volkov thought about the billions of Velens killed. About the children in chains. About Ilan's daughter somewhere in a Krynoth slave camp. Rescue them. Take prisoners. We're not them. We're humans. We have rules, even in war. But they would not do the same for you. I know. That's what makes us different. That's what makes us human. A Velen scientist named Pyrrha, who had been monitoring the battle from a support ship, contacted Volkov directly. Captain, I must understand. You lost 15 ships. Over 3,000 humans died. You won, but the cost was terrible. Why did you fight so hard? Why did you sacrifice so much for people you barely know? Jackson, now back aboard the Relentless with his surviving Marines, answered before Volkov could. His armor was scorched and dented, covered in both human and alien blood, because no one else would. Because the galaxy sat back and watched you die. Because sometimes the only thing standing between good people and monsters is someone willing to become a monster themselves. But there are more Krynoth ships coming, Pyrrha said. Our sensors detected a massive fleet heading this way. Over 2,000 vessels. They will arrive in 2 days. You cannot win against those numbers. Volkov looked at his battered ship, at his exhausted crew, at the debris field surrounding them. He thought about Earth, about humanity's long history of fighting impossible odds. They had survived ice ages and plagues. They had fought wars that killed millions and came back stronger. They had conquered their own deadly world through sheer determination. Maybe we can't win, he said quietly. But we're going to try, because that's what Deathworlders do. We don't give up. We don't surrender. We fight until we win or until there's nothing left to fight with. And right now we've got plenty of fight left. Admiral Kane's face appeared on the view screen. Behind he, deep beneath the surface of Mars, in a bunker built to survive anything short of planetary destruction, Earth's military command gathered in emergency session. General Nathan Bryce stood before a holographic display showing the Velen system. Red icons represented the incoming Krynoth fleet. 2,000 ships, maybe more. Blue icons showed human forces. 200 damaged ships with another 100 reinforcements on the way. The math was brutal and simple. They couldn't win. Conventional warfare is suicide, said Admiral Kane, her voice tired but steady. Even if every human ship takes out 7 enemy vessels, we still lose. We need something else, something they won't expect. Bryce pulled up a classified file. Protocol Hornet's Nest. It was developed during the border wars but deemed too extreme for use against human opponents. The basic concept is simple. We can't match them ship to ship, so we don't try. We turn the entire system into a weapon. The hologram shifted, showing thousands of small dots swarming around larger vessels. Unmanned drones. Cheap, fast, and deadly. Each one carries a nuclear charge powerful enough to cripple a capital ship. We build thousands of them, hide them throughout the system, and when the Krynoth arrive, we activate them all at once. That's mass production on an impossible scale, said Defense Minister Rodriguez. We'd need factories running at maximum capacity. We'd need resources we don't have. Then we strip every mining operation, every shipyard, every industrial facility in human space, Kane said. We have 48 hours. We don't need them to be pretty. We just need them to work. The vote was unanimous. Within hours, every human factory from Earth to the outer colonies received the same order. Build drones. Build them fast. Build them deadly. The entire human industrial machine pivoted to a single purpose with frightening efficiency. In the Velen system, Captain Volkov reviewed the battle plan. It was insane. It relied on timing, luck, and the enemy doing exactly what humans predicted. But insane plans were humanity's specialty. Lieutenant Torres, start deploying the sensor drones. I want them hidden in every asteroid, every debris field, every moon. The Kryneth won't be able to sneeze without us knowing about it. Aye, sir. Deploying now. Jackson stood in the training bay with 50 Velen volunteers. They looked terrified. They should be. He was about to teach them something their species had never learned in 10,000 years of peaceful existence. He was about to teach them how to kill. Listen up, Jackson's voice echoed in the bay. I know you're scared. That's good. Fear keeps you alive. But fear also paralyzes, and paralyzed soldiers are dead soldiers. So we're going to take that fear and turn it into something useful. A young Velen named Torin raised one of his 4 hands. How do you do that? How do you control fear? You don't control it. You ride it. Fear makes your heart pump faster, makes you stronger, makes you think quicker. It's your body preparing for a fight. So when you feel afraid, you lean into it. You let it fuel you. Jackson pulled up training footage from human military history. Watch this. The Velens watched as human soldiers charged through gunfire, scaled walls under impossible conditions, and kept fighting even when wounded. Pyrrha, who had joined the training session, spoke quietly. They look like they enjoy it, like they're smiling while fighting. Some of them are, Jackson admitted, not because they like killing, because they've accepted that they might die, and once you accept that, fear loses its power. You become dangerous. You become unpredictable. You become human. The training began. Jackson pushed the Velens hard, deliberately putting them in stressful situations. Loud noises, confined spaces simulated combat. Their natural instinct was to flee or freeze. He had to break that instinct and rebuild it into something else. Torin collapsed after the 3rd drill, gasping. I cannot do this. My body is not built for this kind of stress. Jackson pulled him to his feet. Your body will do what you tell it to do. Pain is just weakness leaving. Fear is just fuel burning. Now get up and try again. But why? Why do humans train this way? It seems cruel. Because when the real fight comes, you won't have time to think. Your training takes over. Your body knows what to do even when your mind is screaming. That's how you survive. Now, again. Ambassador Ilan watched from the observation deck. The Velen diplomat had seen many things in a long life, but watching its people transform into warriors disturbed something deep inside. Volkov joined the ambassador, carrying 2 cups of coffee. Your people are doing well, Volkov said. They are becoming like you. I am not certain this is a good thing. Ilan accepted the coffee but didn't drink. Humans seem almost eager for battle. Your Lieutenant Jackson teaches our people to embrace violence. Is this truly necessary? Volkov was quiet for a moment. Let me tell you something about Earth, Ambassador. We've been fighting each other for our entire history. Wars that killed millions were just another Tuesday for us. We fought over land, resources, religion, ideology, sometimes just because we didn't like each other. You know what we learned from all that blood? What? How to win. How to survive when survival seems impossible. How to turn fear into fuel and pain into power. We learned that sometimes the only way to stop a monster is to become something the monster fears. Volkov took a sip of his coffee. Your people were peaceful for thousands of years. That's beautiful. That's admirable. But it also made you vulnerable. The galaxy is full of predators, and predators don't respect peace. They respect strength. So we must become like the Kryneth? Violent and cruel? No, you become like us. We're violent when we need to be, but we choose when to fight. The Kryneth fight because they enjoy domination. We fight because someone has to protect the people who can't protect themselves. There's a difference. Down in the training bay, Torin successfully completed a drill. He stood there, breathing hard, and then he smiled. It was a small thing, but Jackson recognized it. That was the smile of someone who had just discovered they were stronger than they thought. That was the smile of someone who had conquered their fear. That was the beginning of a warrior. Pyrrha approached Jackson after the session. The Velen scientist carried a data pad filled with human military history files. I have been studying your species' conflicts. The numbers are disturbing. In your Second World War alone, over 60 million humans died. That's more than the entire current population of my homeworld. Yeah, that was a bad one. But you kept fighting. For years. Even when cities were destroyed. Even when millions died. You never surrendered. Why? Jackson cleaned his rifle as he answered. Because the alternative was worse. Because sometimes you fight not because you want to, but because you have to. Because evil only wins when good people do nothing. He looked at Pyrrha. The Kreenoth think they're the apex predators of the galaxy. They've never met a species that fought wars like humans do. They're about to get an education. The drone factories worked around the clock. In orbit around Earth, massive industrial stations pumped out attack drones by the thousands. Each drone was simple, barely more than an engine, a warhead, and basic sensors. But they didn't need to be sophisticated. They just needed to be numerous and deadly. 40 hours after receiving the order, 10,000 drones were ready. 20 hours after that, another 15,000. They were loaded onto transport ships and jumped to the Velen system in waves. Human crews worked without sleep, hiding the drones throughout the system. Inside asteroids, attached to debris, floating in planetary rings. Anywhere the Kreenoth wouldn't think to look. Volkov watched the deployment from the repaired bridge of the Relentless. How many do we have now? 28,000 drones deployed, sir. Another 7,000 arriving within the hour. We're also setting up false sensor readings. The Kreenoth will think the signatures are just debris or sensor ghosts. Good. What about the real surprise? Torres smiled. It was not a pleasant expression. The asteroid base is ready, sir. 50 missiles with plasma warheads. When the Kreenoth fleet passes through the belt, they'll get a surprise they won't forget. Assuming they fall for it. They will, sir. Humans have been setting ambushes for 50,000 years. We're good at it. 6 hours before the Kreenoth arrival, Volkov called all ship commanders to a virtual briefing. Faces appeared on his screen, human and Velen alike. They all looked exhausted. They all looked determined. Ladies, gentlemen, and honored allies, Volkov began. In 6 hours, the biggest enemy fleet in Kreenoth history is going to arrive in this system. They're coming to finish what they started. They're coming to destroy us and enslave your people. They think this will be easy. They think we're already beaten. They're wrong. He pulled up the tactical display. We're not going to fight them ship to ship. We're going to make them fight on our terms, in an environment we control. We've turned this entire system into a trap. Every asteroid is a potential weapon. Every piece of debris might be hiding a drone. They'll be looking for a fleet battle. Instead, they're going to get a nightmare. Admiral Kane's image appeared. The reinforcements from Earth have arrived. 100 fresh ships with full ammunition and eager crews. Total human forces now number 300 vessels. Still outnumbered, still outgunned, but we're not here to win a fair fight. We're here to make them bleed for every meter or Volko. The Kreenoth Armada filled the view screens like a metal storm. 2,300 warships arranged in perfect formations that spoke of absolute confidence. At the center, the massive command dreadnought Eternal Dominion dwarfed every other vessel. Its weapons could glass planets. Its shields could withstand sustained bombardment from entire fleets. War Commander Thulgrim commanded from its bridge, reviewing the tactical situation with satisfaction. Sensors report only 300 human vessels, War Commander, his tactical officer reported. They're deployed throughout the system in scattered positions. This is not a battle formation. They appear disorganized. Thulgrim studied the display. Inferior tactics from an inferior species. They spread their forces too thin, trying to protect everything. They will protect nothing. All ships advance to the inner system. Destroy any resistance. Today we teach the galaxy what happens to those who defy the Dominion. The Kreenoth fleet moved forward, engines burning bright against the darkness. They entered the asteroid belt without hesitation. Why would they fear rocks in space? Their shields could deflect any debris. Their sensors could detect any threat. They never saw the drones. Hidden inside asteroids, attached to debris, floating dormant in the silence, 28,000 attack drones waited. Each one was barely larger than a coffin, packed with explosives and a simple targeting system. They were crude weapons by galactic standards. But crude didn't mean ineffective. Captain Volkov watched the Kreenoth fleet advance deeper into the trap. Wait for it. Wait until they're committed. Wait until they're so deep they can't easily retreat. Torres monitored the enemy positions. They're passing marker 7. Still advancing. They're not scanning actively. They think the debris is just debris. Arrogance. It's killed more armies than any weapon. Volkov waited until the enemy fleet was exactly where he wanted them. All units execute Protocol Hornet's Nest. Wake up the swarm. Throughout the asteroid belt, the drones activated. Their engines fired, and they launched toward the Krynoth fleet like a wave of mechanical fury. 28,000 missiles, each seeking a target, each carrying enough explosive to cripple a warship. Thulgrim saw them on sensors a split second before they hit. Evasive action. All ships, emergency shields. Where did they come from? There was no time for answers. The drones swarmed the Krynoth fleet like angry hornets, hence the protocol's name. They targeted engine sections, shield generators, weapon systems. Individually, they weren't much of a threat. A single drone could be shot down easily. But there weren't just a few drones. There were thousands coming from every direction at once. Explosions rippled through the Krynoth formations. Ships broke apart or went tumbling out of control. Shields designed to stop capital ship weapons struggled against the sheer number of impacts. It was death by 1,000 cuts, and the Krynoth had never experienced anything like it. Damage report. Thulgrim roared as his flagship shuddered under multiple impacts. 17 ships destroyed, War Commander. 43 more with critical damage. Shields are failing across the fleet. These weapons are primitive but effective in such numbers. We are taking heavy casualties. Return fire. Destroy those drones. But shooting the drones was like trying to swat flies with a battleship. The Krynoth weapons were designed for large targets, not small, fast-moving objects. For every drone they destroyed, 5 more got through. The perfect formations dissolved into chaos as ships tried to avoid the swarm. That's when the human fleet struck. Volkov's ships had been waiting in the outer system, hidden behind moons and planets. Now they jumped in, appearing at close range to the confused Krynoth forces. All ships target their command vessels. Take out their leadership and the rest will fall apart. Fire at will. The human ships didn't target randomly. They had studied Krynoth tactics during the previous battle. They knew which ships were command vessels, which carried their leadership, which were critical to fleet coordination. Human missiles and railgun fire focused on those targets with surgical precision. The Krynoth fleet tried to respond, but they were fighting 2 battles at once. The drones continued their relentless assault from one direction, while human warships hammered them from another. Their formations, designed for organized warfare, became a liability in the chaos. Jackson led his Marines in a desperate gambit. Boarding teams, target that carrier. If we can take it, we can use their own fighters against them. His transport screamed toward the Krynoth carrier through a storm of weapons fire. Half his team died before they even reached the target. Jackson didn't slow down. The transport slammed into the carrier's hull, and the Marines poured out, weapons blazing. The Krynoth crew fought hard, but Jackson's team fought harder. They used every dirty trick humanity had learned in 10,000 years of warfare. They used explosives to create choke points. They used the ship's own systems against the crew, venting atmosphere in some sections while overpressurizing others. They fought with a brutality that shocked the Krynoth, who thought they understood violence. Contact Section 9, one of Jackson's Marines called out. Heavy resistance. We're pinned down. Jackson grabbed a plasma cutter meant for ship repairs and modified it on the spot into a weapon. Then we go through them. No retreat. No surrender. Just forward. They carved through bulkheads, ignoring the proper corridors entirely. The Krynoth defenders found themselves attacked from directions they hadn't thought possible. Within 20 minutes, Jackson's team reached the carrier's bridge. Within 25 minutes, the carrier was theirs. All human ships, this is Jackson. We've captured the carrier Bloodfang. Her fighter bays are intact and full. Permission to launch against our enemies using their own birds? Volkov smiled grimly. Permission granted. Show them the price of picking a fight with humans. Krynoth fighters, now piloted by human volunteers who had spent the last 2 days learning the controls, launched from the captured carrier. They joined the battle, attacking Krynoth ships that didn't realize they were now enemy combatants until it was too late. The confusion added another layer to the chaos. Thulgrim watched his perfect battle plan collapse into disaster. This is impossible. They are outnumbered. They are outgunned. How are we losing? His second officer, Vokrin, understood even if Thulgrim did not. They do not fight like civilized species, War Commander. They use tactics we consider dishonorable. They sacrifice their own units freely. They exploit every weakness. They turn our own weapons against us. They fight like animals cornered on their death world. Then we will respond with overwhelming force. All ships target the human flagship. I want Captain Volkov dead. Once their leader falls, they will break. Every Krynoth ship in range turned their weapons on the Relentless. The firepower was staggering. Nothing could survive that much concentrated destruction. The human dreadnought's shields failed within seconds. Armor boiled away. Hull breaches appeared across every deck. "Captain, we're taking critical damage," Torres reported. "Hull integrity at 30%. We've lost weapons, shields, and main engines. Life support is failing. Sir, we need to evacuate." Volkov looked at his dying ship, at his crew, still at their stations despite certain death approaching, at the battle raging outside where humans were winning despite impossible odds. He thought about Earth, about humanity's long history of last stands and hopeless battles. Sometimes one person's sacrifice could change everything. Negative. "All crew, this is the captain. Abandon ship." "That's an order." "Everyone to the escape pods, move." "Sir, what about you?" Torres asked. "Someone needs to steer. Someone needs to make sure this ship does one last thing for humanity. Now go." "That's an order, Lieutenant." Torres hesitated, then saluted. "It's been an honor, sir." The crew evacuated, flooding into escape pods that launched toward friendly ships. Within minutes, Volkov was alone on the bridge of the dying Relentless. He sat in his captain's chair and looked at the tactical display. The Krynoth flagship, the Eternal Dominion, sat at the center of their fleet. It was massive, powerful, and protected by layers of shields that had survived everything humanity had thrown at it. But those shields were designed to stop weapons fire, not a 3-million-ton starship traveling at maximum velocity. Volkov diverted every remaining bit of power to the engines. The Relentless groaned and shuddered, but it began to move. Faster, faster, heading directly toward the Eternal Dominion. Thulgrim saw the dying ship accelerating toward him. What is he doing? That ship is crippled. It poses no threat, Vakrin understood. His eyes went wide. War Commander, he is going to ram us. He is using his ship as a weapon. Impossible. No commander would sacrifice his own vessel and life in such a manner. You still do not understand humans, War Commander. They will do anything to win. Even die. Thulgrim tried to maneuver, but the Eternal Dominion was too large, too slow. The Relentless, engines screaming, armor burning, crashed into the Krynoth flagship like the fist of an angry god. The impact was catastrophic. The Relentless broke apart on contact, but its momentum carried debris through the Eternal Dominion shields. Metal tore through metal. Reactors overloaded. The massive dreadnought shuddered, listed, and then broke in half. Secondary explosions rippled through both halves as they drifted apart. War Commander Thulgrim died in those explosions along with his entire command staff. The Krynoth fleet saw 3 weeks after the battle in Velen space. A combined fleet of human and Velen warships emerged at the edge of the Krynoth Prime system. It was smaller than the force that had defended the Velen homeworld, just 200 ships. But these were veterans now. Crews who had seen the worst and survived. They were lean, mean, and absolutely furious. Admiral Kane stood on the bridge of her new flagship, the Vengeance. The name was chosen deliberately. This wasn't a liberation. This wasn't a rescue. This was payback. Status report. All ships reporting ready, Admiral. The Krynoth home system has defensive platforms and a garrison fleet of approximately 800 vessels. Intelligence suggests most of their military is still scattered from our previous engagement. Good. That means we caught them unprepared. They thought we'd lick our wounds and hide. They're about to learn that humans don't hide. Kane pulled up a star map showing Krynoth Prime. Tactical, I want targets identified. Military installations only. Shipyards, weapons factories, training facilities. We're not here to harm civilians, but we're going to gut their ability to wage war. Lieutenant Torres, promoted after the Relentless went down, worked her console. Targets locked, Admiral. 3 orbital shipyards, 5 planetary defense platforms, and their main military academy on the second moon. Transmit targeting data to all ships. Weapons free on my mark. The Galactic Council had condemned the human operation before it even began. They called it aggression, revenge-driven madness, a violation of every civilized law of warfare. Their official message to Earth demanded humanity stand down immediately, or face sanctions, embargoes, and possible military intervention. Earth's response had been brief and pointed. You stood by and watched genocide. You did nothing while innocents died. You have no moral authority here. Stand aside. Ambassador Ilin watched the approaching battle from a Velen command ship. The elderly diplomat had changed in the past weeks. The broken, defeated being who had arrived at human space begging for help was gone. In its place stood something harder, tempered by war and loss.
Admiral Kane, the Krynoth are broadcasting on all frequencies.
They demand we withdraw immediately. Let them demand. Open a channel. The view screen showed Vakrin, the Krynoth commander who had survived the previous battle. He looked tired and surprisingly not entirely hostile. Admiral Kane of Earth, I warned my superiors about your species. They did not listen. Now you are here at our homeworld, with weapons aimed at our people. What are your demands? Kane's expression was carved from ice. Demand no, Commander. This isn't a negotiation. Let me tell you what's going to happen. Your military will surrender completely. Every warship, every weapon, every soldier. You will hand over your leaders for trial. You will pay reparations to every species you've enslaved or destroyed. You will dismantle your empire piece by piece. And if you refuse any of this, we will do it for you. Vakrin's face showed something like respect. You cannot occupy our entire empire. You do not have the numbers, watch us. We don't need to occupy everything. We just need to make it so expensive for you to rebuild that you'll never threaten anyone again. We've studied your economy, your logistics, your whole system. We know how to break it, so you have two choices. Surrender now, or we turn your civilization back 1,000 years. Your call. And what guarantee do we have that you will not simply exterminate us? You are, after all, Deathworlders. Violence is your nature. Kane's smile was cold. Violence is a tool, Commander. We use it when necessary. But unlike you, we don't enjoy it. We're not here to commit genocide. We're here to ensure you never commit it again. There's a difference. Jackson led his Marines toward the orbital shipyard designated Target Alpha. His team had been reinforced with Velen volunteers, including Torin, who had proven himself a capable warrior during training and battle. They approached in stealth pods, running dark to avoid detection. Remember the plan, Jackson whispered into the comm. We take the control center, shut down the yard's defenses, and hold it until the main fleet can disable it permanently. Non-lethal force when possible. These are workers, not soldiers. But if they shoot first, you shoot back. Clear? Clear, sir. Torin's voice was steady. The young Velen had come a long way from the terrified volunteer he'd been weeks ago. They breached the hull and moved through the shipyard like ghosts. Most of the workers fled at first sight of the armed troops. A few Krynoth security forces tried to resist and were put down quickly. Within 30 minutes, Jackson's team held the control center. Admiral, Target Alpha is secure. Defense grid is down. You're clear to move in. Acknowledged. Good work, Lieutenant. The human fleet advanced on the Krynoth defensive positions. The garrison fleet tried to mount a defense, but they were badly outnumbered and facing veterans who had already beaten a force 3 times their size. The battle was short and brutal. Within 2 hours, the Krynoth orbital defenses were destroyed or captured. Kane opened a channel to the planet below. Krynoth Prime, this is Admiral Rebecca Kane of the Terran Defense Fleet. Your orbital defenses are gone. Your fleet is destroyed. You have 1 hour to surrender your government and military leadership, or we begin orbital strikes on military targets. I say again, military targets only. We will not harm civilians, but your ability to wage war ends today. On the planet's surface in the Grand Dominion Palace, the Krynoth High Council convened an emergency session. The Supreme Archon, a massive Krynoth who had ruled for 30 years, slammed his claws against the table. This is outrageous. We are the Dominion. We have conquered 100 worlds. We will not bow to a primitive species from a backwater planet. The Minister of War, a scarred veteran, disagreed. Archon, we have no choice. Our fleet is broken. Our defenses are gone. These humans fight in ways we cannot counter. They turn every weakness into a weapon. They sacrifice themselves without hesitation. And they are not bluffing about the orbital strikes. If we do not surrender, they will cripple us, and then we fight to the last. We die with honor rather than submit to inferior beings. With respect, Archon, there is no honor in pointless death. And these humans are not inferior. They are different. They are Deathworlders. We made a fatal mistake in threatening them. Now we pay the price. The debate raged for 45 minutes. Then Admiral Kane made good on her promise. A single orbital strike destroyed the Krynoth Military Academy on the second moon. It was a surgical strike with no civilian casualties, but the message was clear. Comply or more would follow. The High Council surrendered. Kane stood in the ruins of the council chamber 3 days later. The Krynoth leadership had been arrested and were awaiting trial. Occupation forces, a mix of human and Velen troops, secured key facilities. The Dominion's military was in the process of complete disarmament. Commander Vakrin approached her, now wearing civilian clothes. He had been stripped of rank and authority. "Admiral, I'm told you wish to speak with me." "I do. You're the closest thing the Krynoth have to a reasonable leader right now. Your people are angry. They feel humiliated. Some are calling for resistance, guerrilla warfare. I need you to talk them down." "Why would I do that?" "You have destroyed everything we built over centuries. Because the alternative is worse." Kane pulled up images on a holographic display. "This is what total war looks like. This is what happens when you push a Deathworld species too far. We can turn your entire civilization into ash. We have the weapons. We have the will. But we don't want to. We're not monsters, Commander. We're just very, very good at stopping monsters." Vokrin studied the images of human weapons, human tactics, human history. "What do you want from us?" "I want you to understand something. The galaxy has operated under the same rules for thousands of years. The strong dominate the weak. Might makes right. Slavery and conquest are accepted as normal. Well, Earth doesn't accept that. We're here to change the rules, and we're willing to fight every empire, every dominion, every species that profits from suffering until those rules change. You cannot police the entire galaxy. Maybe not, but we can make examples. The Krynoth Dominion will be the first. You will be completely disarmed. You will pay reparations. You will return every slave, every prisoner, every conquered population, and you will do it under human and Velen supervision for the next 50 years. If you resist, we'll extend it to 100. If you attack anyone again, we'll end you as a civilization. Permanently." Vokrin was silent for a long moment. "You truly mean this? Every word? Because here's what you need to understand about humans, Commander. We remember. We remember every wrong done to us or those we protect, and we will cross light years and fight for decades to make things right. Your people picked a fight with the one species in the galaxy that never, ever gives up. Now you live with the consequences." Ambassador Ilin addressed the Galactic Council from the Great Assembly Hall on the neutral world of Harmony Station. The council chamber held representatives from 200 species, many of whom had protested humanity's actions. Ilin stood before them all, forearms spread wide. "Honored council members, you condemn Earth for violating the laws of civilized warfare. You call humans aggressive, violent, dangerous, and you are correct. Humans are a